For RCR Wireless News, my name is Sean Kinney, and it's a pleasure to be at the Taiwan Pavilion this morning to discuss a very important topic, which is the continued development of Open RAN. And to do that, we've got a very esteemed panel. Before we get into the conversation, I would ask each of you to please introduce yourselves to our audience and tell us a bit about your roles and responsibilities with your respective organizations. Maggie, can we start with you, please?
Okay, thank you, Sean. Hello, everyone. This is Maggie Zhao. I'm the Division Director of ITRI, which is a research institute in Taiwan, focusing more on the advanced research and industrial promotion. And my team is working very closely with the Taiwan government to promote the communication industry, including Open RAN.
Hello, everyone. I'm come from Chunghwa Telecom in Taiwan. My name is Jia. Right now, I'm a president of the network technology. Taiwan, Chunghwa Telecom want to help Taiwan so many vendor, all-RAN vendor, to deployment all-RAN. And in Taiwan, successful and all over the world. That's what we want.
So Andreas Lados, my name. I work for Deutsche Telekom Group Technology, but more importantly, I run the I14Y lab in Berlin, which is one of the OTICs in Europe. And we partner with two other operators, with Telefonica Germany and Vodafone Germany, so that's a group of 3 operators in total, plus some other partners.
So I can recall in 2018, prior to the formation of the O-RAN Alliance, when there was a bit of a push from operators to approach development of RAN differently, to really disaggregate hardware from software and set the stage for innovation. But it's been a long road. But I think at this point we've reached a level of maturity that's evidenced by the scale and pace of global deployments. But given the opportunity space and the challenges that the industry has worked through, I'd love to hear from each of you about how we can collectively continue to accelerate Open RAN adoption. So Maggie, what are your thoughts here?
Okay, you know that Taiwan's ICT industry plays a crucial role in the global supply chain, spanning from the semiconductors to key components to network equipment and terminal devices. So given that experience and the flexible capability accumulated, we do think it's a very good opportunity for our industry to support more on the Open RAN's diverse supply chain. So that's the reason we established a carrier-grade end-to-end integration testing lab at the very first beginning, because we try to provide qualified solutions from Taiwan. And of course, we also see some challenges when we try to introduce some new solution. For example, the majority and stability, how to enhance the efficiency for the integration, or what are the new use cases that can help to plan more deployment. So Taiwan government, they also conduct a field in the south of Taiwan, so that we encourage the Open RAN stakeholder to work with the owner from the vertical market there, so that they can join develop a lot of smart solutions. For example, they have developed solutions for the smart manufacturing, smart porting, or theme park. So that will be a way that we can accumulate a lot of use cases. And except for that, we also have some small-scale funding opportunity, field projects for the trials, or some advanced research development, or we have some tax refund so that we can subsidize the investment for the Open RAN development. And we also engage with many global partners so that we can explore more opportunity for collaboration. But at the same time, we still to collect the feedback from the stakeholder so that we can adjust and modify accordingly.
Excellent. And then if we move on to some operator perspectives, there's a lot to do with your 5G networks as you continue to evolve the macro networks, but also address the private network opportunity. But I'd love to hear from you how you consider your supplier relations and diversification as you go down that path. Dr. Zhao, can we start with you?
Yes, Taiwan has invested so many years to help Taiwan all-RAN vendor to deployment successfully in Taiwan. And so there's so many challenges that we have, also the vendor have. Right now in the world, there is an all-RAN alliance, okay, you can find some specification for the ORAN vendor to follow. So in Taiwan, I think so many Taiwan vendors has developed ORAN for many years. They need to find some operator to find a real field to deployment that. But that's a challenge because in Chunghwa Telecom point of view, we have choice everything Nokia as a partner of us. Why we need to choose the ORAN vendor? You need to some function that or some pricing that need to be fulfilled Chunghwa Telecom point of view. So I think the long-term road to go from the operator, also from the ORAN vendor, is very, very difficult road to go. I think if we want to success, we need to work hard to cooperate together. Thank you.
And Andreas, I mean, Deutsche Telekom, I think it's fair to say, has been a pioneer in the Open RAN space with your involvement with the MOU group in Europe and the development work that you've done within Germany. But can you tell us a little bit about some of the considerations that you all have addressed across this journey, not just supplier diversification, but of course that's part of it, but really the larger goal of innovation and delivering a better experience to your customer base?
Yeah. So first of all, you mentioned the basic principles of Open RAN, which is separation of software and hardware and modularization. And that is still the right way to go, and we are highly committed to do that. However, and you have heard that already, there are a couple of challenges related to the integration of the different components, also related to the evolution of the market and the ecosystem. So that's why we have, I would say, a two-sided approach there. So one is we work closely with Nokia and Fujitsu on the early deployments, addressing, for example, the integration. On the other hand, we work with i14Y lab, we run that lab, we also work with other operators in order to develop solutions for simple integration, improve the test specifications, give feedback to an ORAN alliance. So we work actively with them and also with TIP. And the goal here is to address this assumption of synergy between the operators. So there was I think a good study published by TIP a couple of years ago. They say there's an overlap of perhaps 60-70% in testing. There's no difference whether it's done at operator side A or B. So, but the point is, how can we really gain from that synergy? So, and this is about trust of the test specification, improvement of test specification, and also automation of the integration. So if you look at the process in the lab, so the integration and pre-integration, that requires a lot of effort. And now we're focusing on that as well to make that easier or even more automatic. So that's the way to go.
Continuing with this idea of testing, certification, and even in some instances badging programs, we have seen a lot of progress. You mentioned the work that TIP does and then the work that ORAN Alliance does, and I think generally the goal here is to not put the impetus on every operator on Earth to go through a similar duplicative testing regime. So how can we test once, deploy many, and really accelerate the time to value for the user base? But again, I'd like to hear from each of you, when we get down into this testing work, telecommunication network, this is critical infrastructure. Your respective organizations, you do have a degree of responsibility to ensure that what you put into market is reliable and is adaptable. But how can we foster global collaboration as it relates to testing? Maggie?
Yes, as the neutral lab, that our strategy is go with the global partner in the first beginning. So that's why we work TIP, because we can have the requirement from their operators requirement. And we also work with i14Y lab. So now that we join develop the rig test cases for the energy saving in that way, because we work with them, so that we can have wider opinions, so that we can come out with the test case for more common scenario. And we also work with the local operators so that we have regular meeting with Chunghwa Telecom so that we can understand the gap between the open RAN and the traditional one. But you know what we found is that it's not just the gap between the solutions. There is also a fundamental difference in thinking between the operators and the vendors. So I always remember that, and as you mentioned, that the operator is thinking system-wise, but the vendors is thinking function-wise. So you know, as a lab, we position in between these two parties. So it's essential for us to adapt the testing methodology accordingly. So it means that we are not just ensuring the individual features work as intended. We also need to assessing all the impact on the broader scenarios. So that, for example, the project we are working with I40Y Lab now, we have put all the related stakeholders on the table, so that including the solution vendor who provide the energy saving solutions. He needs to be here. We also have the academia from Berlin. They are the expertise for the energy saving. And we have I40Y Lab, so we have the test opinions and opinions from the Deutsche Telekom. And we also invite Chunghwa Telecom to join with us so that they can give us opinion from the operator from the different regions. And what we are doing now is that we try to count out the cases, and our next step is trying to build out a repeatable testing environment. And we still continue to find out more partners for this project so that we can make sure this repeatable testing result is more representable. And except for that, our lab is also looking for the solutions for the automation. So that I think that is the key elements from the lab perspective.
And Dr. Jiang, what's your perspective here?
Thank you. As an operator, if you want to use O-RAN product deployment in the real network, I think we have two machines need to test before they can launch in the real network. One is the functionality. So Chunghwa Telecom has built on the lab, I think 5 years ago. We have defined more than 20 items need to test each one. And the tested item is defined by the O-RAN analysis. So Telecom also joined the O-RAN analysis before 5 years ago. So we test the O-RAN vendor product in our lab. They need to test each one and pass our test. And then at last we need to test the resilience and their stability. Because Chunghwa Telecom won't use the O-RAN product in our network, they can keep 24 hours and it will not shut down by themselves. So it's very important for Chunghwa Telecom to build. But right now, O-RAN vendor in Taiwan, it's not easy to pass all items. And also, they cannot consistent to have 24/7 hours working. So they need to work hard. For Chunghwa Telecom's point of view, we will help Taiwan O-RAN vendor to test or to pass all items, and they can keep working. Deployment in Chunghwa Telecom and also all over the world. That's what we want. Thank you.
And Andreas, I mean, how do you think about it within DT? Obviously, you have to follow your own internal testing protocols, but how do you balance that with leveraging the work that's been done globally that could hasten your efforts?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think the answer has two dimensions. One is if we want to gain from the synergy between the overlapping space in testing between different operators, then we need an agreement of requirements and presumably also requirement documents that are stronger than the existing ones, because we need to aggregate the requirements from different operators, and that's what we do with the MOU group. There's this group of European operators who have issued, that has issued requirement documents, and more importantly, last year we started a group of AT&T, Vodafone International in DT to provide requirement document for outdoor macro, plus test specification, and that is done in cooperation with TIP, with Telecom Infra project. So, and the second element is, besides the aggregated requirements, is trust. So how do we create trust that people really say, hey, this is the test I can trust, I can take it, there's no need to repeat it. And that is also an ongoing activity in ORAN Alliance, also in TIP. And we address that with this attempt to show the repeatability of testing and reliability of testing. So we built same setup in different labs globally. We work with Weller, we work with ITRI on that, and then we compare the test results and write conclusions concerning the differences, etc. So that step by step it gets improved. And last point for trust is also, if we look at the security testing and discussion that is done at ORAN Alliance, so they, very specific to security testing, they talk about accreditation and very specialized test centers who have a kind of ISO certification and all those things that are usually necessary. So that's a balance between speed, innovation versus this level of trust, and that requires some more framework.
Well, to stay with you, Andreas, and to this point of frameworks, you know, you mentioned a lot of the relevant consortia. We have the Telecom Infra project, we have ORAN Alliance, and then we have operators that have partnered up, the MOU group and other international relations that have developed. Do we need more? Is what is in place today adequate? Is this something that industry can handle internally, or does there need to be another layer of regulation to help formalize and foster that trust?
Oh, that's a good question. So I would expect, and that's also our approach, that there is a joint interest at the operator side, and that they join forces and at least describe what they expect. So, and that I think will be more powerful than any attempt to do a general regulation on that. But I'm not the expert in regulation, honestly. So from the engineering perspective, I think to find the joint requirements and work accordingly, that's the right approach.
And Dr. Zhao, what's your view here? Do we need additional testing frameworks, additional coordination mechanisms, or what we have today, is this adequate?
Okay. 5 years ago, Chunghwa Telecom has joined ORAN Alliance. So if the operator in the worldwide want to use the ORAN product, I think we will follow the CGPP specification. So I think in my point of view that ORAN Alliance, the specification should be merged into CGPP and to define in the CGPP ORAN specification that every vendor or operator can follow. So the framework for the testing framework need to be defined in CGPP. So right now it's in the current status that ORAN define themselves and then they merge a little bit in the CGPP. So if we want to ORAN make it successfully, I think two organizations should be combined into only one specification that the operator and the vendor can follow. So we can define the testing rule and that the ORAN vendor can follow that function, development function, and we can test them before we deployment on the field. So I think that's very important in my point of view. Thank you.
So as we start to reach the end of our time together, I think I would ask each of you, generally, how would you communicate to your colleagues the best way to participate in global efforts for Open RAN adoption? And you know, Maggie, you raised the point of energy saving. I think that's it's vital. It's foundational to our companies and to our countries and to our globe's continued success. And when you look at some of the data points, this is a US specific view, but Verizon has recently activated their RAN intelligent controller with some energy saving management functionality, and they see an immediate 10 to 30% energy efficiency improvement based on network condition. If you can do that in every network everywhere in the world, this is very, very significant. So how do we make sure that these benefits are spread far and wide? Meng?
Yeah, I think we need to be more open because under this open architecture, we definitely need more innovation, so more new ideas, so that we can create more opportunity. For example, in energy saving case you just mentioned, I have one thing, and it's a new, so all the others need to be open to accept this kind of new ideas. So at the meantime, we need to be more open-minded so that we can embrace all this new innovation so that we can join it to drive the success.
Dr. Zhang.
Okay. Right now there are so many functions need to be in deployment in the Open RAN, including right now ESG, AI function, PWS, and handover, and also VONR. There's so many functions in the Open RAN development. So, in my point of view, that the ORAN vendor right now is quite difficult to deploy live. So need to maybe divide into two parts. One is the basic function. They want to deploy only data, and the two is that voice and the data at the same time. So that's quite challenging for them. So, and of course that the AI and the ESG right now is very, very popular in the commercial or like Nokia or Ericsson base station. So it's quite challenging for all vendor. There's a long way to go if you want to successful in the Open RAN. Yes.
And Andreas, what's some summary thoughts from you? What's the best way to continue to spread the benefits of Open RAN far and wide?
Somehow what I mentioned already. So it is operators must continue to collaborate to develop the ecosystem jointly to make sure that we reach the right level of test specifications. Looking at the ORAN Alliance, for example, so there are still a lot of missing pieces when it comes to RIC or energy efficiency testing. And to always support the ecosystem with contributions. That is important, and also to understand the right level of sharing information so that we get the synergy. And the last point is we should not be shy to work with other players in the ecosystem as well. So, for example, campus networks or enterprise networks, private 5G, small operators, all of them are important for the overall market size, and scale matters in this industry. So we must help the other parts in the industry to contribute, to take Open RAN components. So, and that's, Maggie made already a perfect example. So we have this collaboration on energy efficiency testing. So first step is, okay, we see the improvement from lab perspective. It's important to have it comparable. Which solution is the best? So, and we are not there yet.
Well, and as we continue to collaborate, hopefully we do get there. But I'd like to thank each of you for taking the time to have this discussion with me, share your perspective with our audience, and of course, like to thank our hosts here at the Taiwan Pavilion at Mobile World Congress. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.